Tonight, more than 50 million people bracing for heavy snow and high wind as a powerful nor'easter is set to batter the East Coast. Some areas could see close to 2 feet of snow.
Initially, I said I have enough, and then when they started talking 4 to 12 inches, I said I better get a little more.
Officials warning the incoming system will cause power outages with winds up to 60 miles per hour along the coast and coastal flooding.
This is going to be a brutal blizzard.
New York State declaring a state of emergency for 22 counties, activating 100 National Guardsmen to help.
Tonight, more than 50 million Americans are on alert as a powerful nor'easter barrels toward the East Coast, threatening to paralyze some of the nation's most densely populated cities. Blizzard warnings stretch from the Delaware coast through Boston, with New York City directly in the storm's path. Forecasters warn of snowfall totals approaching 2 feet in some areas, combined with wind gusts exceeding 60 miles per hour. The combination of heavy snow and powerful coastal winds raises the risk of widespread power outages, dangerous whiteout conditions, and significant coastal flooding. States across the region are activating emergency protocols, mobilizing National Guard units, and urging residents to prepare now. For communities still recovering from a deadly winter storm just weeks ago, the timing adds another layer of concern.
Warning from the Delmarva Peninsula up through Boston. That warning as much about wind as it is snow. So what's going on here? The perfect storm atmospherically with that atmospheric blocking, which means the low has time to develop. It looks like a mix or rain for the mid-Atlantic tomorrow afternoon, turning to snow as cold air ramps up. Then we'll see the gusty wind and heaviest snow up the I-95 corridor from Sunday night into Monday morning. That storm system starts to pull away the second half of Monday. We're looking at a foot plus for really highly populated areas. This is going to be a significant snowstorm. But again, we have to touch on the wind. Near the coast, up to 60 mile per hour gusts. That can produce damage that can lead to power outages. It also creates whiteout conditions, making travel dangerous, if not impossible. And it also leads to the coastal flooding, up to 3 feet of inundation during high tide.
Air travel and ground transportation are already feeling the impact. Major airlines have canceled more than 1,000 flights, and that number is expected to rise as conditions deteriorate. Officials warn that roads could quickly become impassable, particularly as snow transitions from mixed precipitation to heavier bands overnight. Emergency declarations in multiple states signal the seriousness of the threat, allowing resources to be pre-positioned and response teams deployed ahead of peak conditions. Coastal communities are also preparing for storm surge and tidal flooding, with projections of up to several feet of inundation during high tide cycles. The concern is not only the snowfall totals, but the sustained winds that can knock down power lines and strand motorists. For many residents, the message is clear. Stay off the roads, charge devices, stock essentials, and prepare for rapid changes in conditions.
I know it's being compared to that storm 4 weeks ago, but remember, with that wind component, the impacts will be worse with this one. I guess one silver lining is we moderate temperature by the middle of the week, so hopefully we'll get some melting.
And it can't come soon enough. All right, Danny, thank you.
Meteorologists describe the system as atmospherically complex, with blocking patterns allowing the storm to intensify and linger. That could mean prolonged snowfall and extended disruption into early next week. While some relief is expected with moderating temperatures later in the week, the immediate priority is safety and readiness. The economic toll of cancellations, closures, and emergency mobilization is likely to be substantial. And as this region braces for another major weather event, the focus now shifts from nature's force to a political storm unfolding in Washington, one that could have financial consequences for households nationwide.
Tonight, President Trump defiant, digging in on his trade war, announcing he's raising his new global tariffs to 15%, an increase from the 10% rate he imposed a day earlier, just hours after the Supreme Court ruled most of his sweeping tariffs are illegal. The president moving swiftly to replace them using other legal authorities.
We have alternatives, great alternatives. Could be more money, we'll take in more money, and we'll be a lot stronger for it.
Trump.
Just one day after the Supreme Court delivered a landmark ruling striking down most of his sweeping tariffs, President Trump is pushing back. Calling the decision poorly written and anti-American, the president announced he would raise a newly imposed global tariff from 10% to 15%, citing alternative legal authorities. The 6-3 decision from the High Court concluded that the president had overstepped his authority, emphasizing that the power to impose taxes rests with Congress. The The ruling strikes at the core of the administration's trade strategy, a policy the president has repeatedly described as central to strengthening domestic manufacturing and rebalancing global trade relationships.
Our country.
The decision striking at the heart of Trump's economic agenda, but the court says he went too far, writing only Congress has the power to impose taxes. Economists say tariffs are actually taxes on American businesses who pass the cost to consumers by raising prices. By one estimate, the president's tariffs have cost American families an extra $1,600 a year.
We're still looking at tariffs that are at, the highest they've been.
Economists
since at
note
least
that
the
tariffs
70s.
function as taxes on imported goods, often increasing costs for businesses that may pass those expenses on to consumers. One estimate suggests American families have faced additional annual costs linked to earlier tariff measures. Supporters argue this strategy pressures foreign governments and protects key industries, while critics warn of market instability and uncertainty for businesses planning long-term investments. The administration says the new measures will remain in place for up to 150 days without congressional approval, signaling a potentially temporary but impactful shift. The ruling also comes just days before the president's State of the Union address, setting the stage for a high-profile political moment with the justices seated before him. From economic policy to constitutional authority, the debate now widens, even as global tensions demand attention abroad.
Satellite images show the USS Gerald Ford sailing into the Mediterranean. It'll be joined by more than 100 cargo planes, refueling tankers, and fighter jets. The USS Abraham Lincoln strike group already in position. All told, there are around 35,000 US troops now in the region. Tonight,
In the Middle East, U.S. military assets are repositioning as President Trump weighs potential strikes on Iran. Satellite imagery shows major naval deployments, including carrier strike groups moving into the region. Officials confirm tens of thousands of American troops are now positioned across key bases, while additional aircraft and refueling tankers are mobilizing. The buildup comes amid renewed anti-government protests inside Iran, following a deadly crackdown just weeks ago. Demonstrators have returned to the streets despite heavy security presence, underscoring deep internal unrest.
Another round of diplomatic talks is expected, but Iran warning if it is attacked, it'll respond decisively, and that all US bases, facilities, and assets of what it calls hostile forces would be legitimate targets.
Rachel, as the US amasses its largest military force in the Middle East in years, the diplomatic process is still technically on track, but there are growing concerns that unless Iran makes major concessions on its nuclear program, then an attack by the US...
Diplomatic talks remain technically underway, but tensions are escalating. The administration says military options are being considered if Iran fails to make significant concessions related to its nuclear program. Iranian leaders have responded defiantly, warning that any attack would be met with decisive retaliation and that U.S. bases and assets could become targets. The strategic calculations are complex, balancing deterrence with diplomacy while avoiding broader regional escalation. Defense officials emphasize readiness, even as diplomats continue efforts behind closed doors. With both sides signaling resolve, the situation remains fluid. And as global headlines focus on potential conflict overseas, another deeply personal crisis is unfolding closer to home.
Tonight marks 3 weeks since Nancy Guthrie was last seen. The FBI is now in touch with Mexican authorities over Guthrie's disappearance. While law enforcement sources tell ABC News there is no evidence she was taken across the border. It's an avenue investigators are exploring, given Tucson's proximity to Mexico. Today, we cross the border.
We've seen billboards for Nancy Guthrie across neighboring states, now a neighboring country here in Mexico.
The search for Nancy Guthrie has now entered its 4th week, expanding beyond U.S. borders as investigators coordinate with Mexican authorities. Law enforcement sources say there is no confirmed evidence she was taken across the border, but Tucson's proximity to Mexico has prompted authorities to explore every possible lead. Volunteers and nonprofit groups have begun posting missing person flyers in neighboring communities across the border, determined to widen awareness and generate new tips.
Back in Tucson, the Pima County Sheriff's Department putting up barricades near Guthrie's home today, turning the road into a one-way street to accommodate residents and public service vehicles.
Rachel, we're seeing a growing number of flowers being dropped off here at Nancy Guthrie's driveway. This as there's dozens of yellow ribbons across this neighborhood as authorities urge anyone with any tips to call them in. Rachel.
Back in Tucson, law enforcement has adjusted traffic patterns near Guthrie's home to manage the steady flow of visitors and service vehicles. Yellow ribbons and flowers line the neighborhood, visible signs of a community holding on to hope. Investigators are urging anyone with information, no matter how small, to come forward. The FBI's involvement underscores the seriousness and scope of the case. Cross-border collaboration highlights how missing person investigations can quickly expand geographically, especially in border regions. Families navigating uncertainty often depend on public awareness and timely reporting to generate leads. As authorities continue to assess tips and review evidence, the central objective remains unchanged: locating Nancy Guthrie and providing answers to those waiting for news. Tonight, millions brace for a powerful winter storm threatening major disruptions across the East Coast. In Washington, a Supreme Court ruling reshapes the president's tariff strategy, with potential impacts for businesses and families. Overseas, U.S. military forces reposition amid rising tensions with Iran and renewed protests. And in the Southwest, the search for Nancy Guthrie expands across borders as investigators pursue every possible lead. Which of these developing stories will have the greatest impact in the days ahead? For continuing coverage, like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for in-depth analysis.